we're live with Lieutenant Dan, the great Lieutenant Dan, who's finally made it. He's made it to the end. Are you excited, Dan?
Yeah, it's it's been an interesting 6 months when you look at the first photos to now. So I'm excited with the progress, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I'm like, you're the first person that I've had to be graduating this weekend. You're graduating with all the other graduates this month. How about that?
Yeah, it worked out good timing.
So I'm excited, and yeah, I don't know where the direction of this hangout is gonna go because this is the first time of doing a hangout at this point. So I don't even know what this hangout is supposed to be about. It's like I wrote it, but I don't even remember it because that was a while back when I did all that. So I'll just let you go with wherever you want to go. How about that?
A little bit of guidance would be good.
So I think on this hangout, your last, let's backtrack a little bit. Level 18, you had to post 25 photos, I believe.
Uh, 20 photos. Yeah.
Okay. So, and of that, I think for the critique or for posting in the group, you had to only post two, correct?
Right. Yes.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna go over the two images that you picked. And then after that, we can talk about the other images that you have, and I guess a little bit like what your journey was with me being a part of the Arcanum, and um, also talking about your portfolio, as that was something that I have in as far as with my outline for my class, that going about creating a portfolio of their images. And so Dan has done that. He's actually gone above and beyond, doing that part as he always does. And so maybe he wants to share a little bit of that with you guys as well. So you can take it from here, Dan. However you want to go. This is your time.
Okay, so I guess starting with the two images, which I guess would be my two favorite out of the 20, and I think I ended up posting in true Dan fashion. I think I did 23 or whatever it was that I did. But the two favorites, I'm just trying to get them up on the screen now because they obviously seem to have disappeared since. There they are. Okay. So the two images that I posted, or the two of my favorite images are this. Can you see my screen?
I
It's
can.
this, yeah. So it's this single panorama, which I think is very much the style that I brought into the group with, which is sunrises and lots of color and nice wide shots. So I think this kind of, I mean, I this is still one of my favorite shots, period. But it also, the two images that I liked were, one was kind of uh, the refined me from when I started, and then something that I've kind of come across while just learning from you and being part of the Arcanum. So I guess this would be image one. And then image two is this, which I think is a little bit different than something I would have been interested in or would have shared, edited, sought out, which is more of an urban or cityscape. Now it's not technically on a street because I'm on someone's balcony, but it's less landscape, shall we put it that way. So this is something that I definitely learned during the Arcanum, and also something that I've tried that I'd never really done before, or I'd done before, but didn't have direction on it, didn't have my take on it. Yeah, so those are the two of the however many I posted that I kind of like the most, but I think it also shows a great before, or at least something that I was doing before and just became better at, as well as something that I wasn't doing before and through looking at your work and other people's work, just gave it a try and really like it.
Great way of how you put that. You had told me before when we did the last hangout, that these two images were going to be your favorite. Um, but I like how you chose an image that was what you brought into the Arcanum, which yeah, you definitely were all nature landscape. That was your thing. And then you include an image that you love that's on the new side that you experience, which is architecture, street, urban type of photos. But it still incorporates, you incorporated what you also love in that, because you have the water and the sunset in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one thing I've seen a lot, is that what you really had the biggest interest in, you still found a way to where you tried other things, but you learned how to put everything together. And that's something that a lot of photographers don't usually experience during their career. And that's they're strictly landscape, they're strictly weddings, they're strictly people's, something like that, but they never kind of mix the two together or want to venture into other areas, because it's like they just have zero interest. But one thing that you saw in this is that all of it's related. It may be a different subject matter, but all of it is related. And up on that quickly. And it's like every urban image that you did get, you still had where you had either a sunset, the sky in there, something dealing with like weather, something pertaining to that landscape feel was still in those photos.
And the nice thing, well, and the way that I look at this specific image that's on the screen now is, I think, I did have some city, urban, street genre before. I don't think it was my strongest work before I came into the Arcanum, but I did, try it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And before the Arcanum, I would have had a scene like this and gone right to the edge of the belt, like the railing that you can see, and I would have taken an image from there. And I definitely have those images. They were part of my 20, was this exact same scene shot from different areas.
Mm-hmm.
But in this image, I stepped back and I said, okay, well, now I want to use the architecture. I want my foreground to be more, pronounced and part, or a larger part of the image. And that was that to me is something that I don't think I would have done, or if I would have done, I don't think I would have edited it to a way in which it stands out as a feature and a visible component to the image, as opposed to just I was there so you can see it kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think this was one that I had selected as being a favorite of mine. Because, people looking at this probably wouldn't select it because you have the column over there on the right. But I'm like, I like doing crazy stuff like that. It's like, of course, people are going to want to take that out of the shot. Why take it out? I could put it in. So, it's things like that you picked up on very, very well, as far as, trying different things, being creative, doing something that most people would say, why would you do that? And I'm like, that's what makes you different. And, it makes you stand out to where people will remember your work.
Yeah, I mean, I quite like the column. I think it kind of shows that, it gives more explanation as to where you are when you're taking, it's not, if that column wasn't there, you wouldn't know, okay, well, what exactly are we looking at? But now you can see its structure, it's a building, it's, kind of gives you this idea that you're standing on a balcony, and I don't know, to me, it just makes it more realistic and something that you can, vision, like experience more.
All right.
So those were the two that I picked, and I guess the reasons why. Yeah, and I think, yeah, you're right. We did discuss. I did tell you those were the ones, but I don't think I really discussed why. But that was just something that, going through the 20 odd images, it's like what I was looking at is, there were definitely a lot of the pre-Arcanum me in those 20 images, but then there were some of the images which we can go through that were, you know, definitely not something that I would have done before, and yet I'm, you know, I'm very happy, or they're kind of my favorite images now. Should we go through the original submission, or do you want to go in a different direction and just talk generally about the Arcanum?
We can go either way. You know, if you want to go through these images, because these your last submission, I really love those images, and so, you know, if you want to talk about those, and you know, like how you came about photographing those, what kind of led you to capturing these particular images, because you know, I think from the time of people that go back and look at the first critique session that we had together, and then look at this one, they're going to see a drastic difference between your work. And I'm sure a lot of people want to kind of, I guess for this video, see more of your, how your journey for the last 6 months have been, really, versus more so a critique, because we've gone through all of that. This is the last one. You know, there's nothing after this. So it necessarily doesn't have to be focused on, you know, any technical things or anything from me as far as my opinion on the photos, because you know, I love this collection. I think it's the best one, and I think for your last collection, you know, it's some of the strongest work that you have. I mean, even if you wanted to, like, say you're showing an image right now, you know, you could even show like the prints that you have, talk about that experience. You know, there's a lot of different things that you can share if you want to, um, that I think will be beneficial for people that may not be to this level yet, or maybe starting out in the Arcanum and kind of want to see someone who's gone through beginning to end without stopping.
Yeah, I mean, I can do a very quick run through of the images and kind of just a very brief explanation of what, where, why, when, etc.
All right.
So the first two images are taken, was actually the same day, and taken from um, a place in Toronto called Evergreen Brickworks, which is an old quarry that they've just turned into this nice little nature reserve just outside the concrete jungle. Now, the reason why, you know, what I want to point out in these is that the next one is actually a close-up of the same scene, and what ended up happening is I'm standing on the next image. I'm standing on this bridge, looking at this brick building in the background, which you see here, and you know, very much Dan shot with reflection and water and nature and sunrises and the whole 9 yards. And then I was, you know, took a couple shots, tried a bunch of things out, and then I looked behind me and I saw there's a path that I'm standing on here, and I saw this, so I turned around and I took a picture looking the opposite direction from this, and I wasn't very happy. So I walked around, came along this path, and got to this shot, and then I saw this. And that the one thing that I definitely learned in the Arcanum, and it was through talking with you and other people, as well as just learning of new photographers, is that, you know, you never should be satisfied with the shot you went to go capture. You should kind of look around you and see what else is there. And this is kind of that perfect example, because this is what I wanted to capture, and I'm very happy with it. And this was something I would not have gone for had I not, you know, stopped, looked around, and said, hey, what about taking a shot over there? So from a technical perspective, I think they're kind of similar shots, but the process is what I definitely learned for sure in these two.
I'm not sure if it was caught on the Hangout or not, but I do remember that one of your favorite videos that you experienced through the Grand Library was a video from Karen Hutton, where she was shooting on location, and she was shooting a scene and just happened to turn around, and she got a better photo that she never even, you know, had planned to get or thought of getting. And so I know you took that video, watching that video and what you said in that video, to heart. because many of the situations after that, you're really being attentive and of your surroundings and kind of seeing, well, I wanted to shoot this, but let's see what's around. Maybe there's something better that I didn't even know about.
Yeah, for sure. That video, yeah, I mean, that was exactly what I was referencing, but that's something that I kind of never thought about before, and now I always think about anytime I'm on location is, I often go somewhere with a specific shot in mind. Either it's somewhere I've been before, or it's somewhere I've seen on the internet and I've wanted to go capture myself, but I've now started to slow down and just look around. And when you've got scenery like this, it's not a big complaint to spend some extra time looking around and walking around. So yeah, that video, and then my discussions with you afterwards, because I think we've discussed this in a few videos and with other members as well. It's kind of really been that thought has really been kind of driven in and embedded in my photography, or my on-site photography work.
Awesome.
So going through, this is a very very much pre Dan Arcanum shot, just with more skill and technique behind it. A standard HDR process. I think there's a bit more Professor Hines in this, where I've gone up a little bit on the contrast and tried to get the I think before I would have had these tree trunks actually lighter and oh, come on. Oh, sorry about that. I would have had these tree trunks, more visible and more detailed. But the one thing I've noticed in your work is that sometimes, too far on the HDR spectrum pulls away from the image. And, that's something I did here, where I've added, contrast to the path, which is what I want my focal point to be, and then taken away a little bit of the attention on the outside by adding the contrast and darkening the branches and really getting that focal point, the viewer's eyes, to come into this path.
Yeah, I definitely, and this certainly would be a signature of mine, because I love these ultra wide shots. This, it's like if you had a tighter lens, it just wouldn't have that same effect, because you wouldn't catch the trees full length. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like you kind of see how those lines just lead you down that path. And it's like just using a wide angle is just a very beautiful thing. And I love how, closer to you the trees are darker, and then as you go down, you kind of have where they're getting, it gives you that sense like you're in the shadows, and then all of a sudden, trees are not as dense, and you're getting that light coming through. And so, it's a lot of times just a sense of perception. And it's like, what can you do to really draw the viewer into this photo? That what makes them actually sit there and think about that photo, feel like they're there.
Yeah, and that again, that to me, that processing, which, although I don't think on the Arcanum there was as much on the technical and the processing side, just seeing other people's work and all the hangouts with you and just discussing these topics, especially grabbing the viewer's attention, that's something that for sure I think is very much visible in this collection.
Awesome.
Another one of my favorite bench series, because I always take pictures of benches for some reason, but this is another place in Toronto where I was just walking by and I saw this bench, and I have a ongoing series that will never end of just benches overlooking just stunning views. So welcome to the next. There might even be another one in this series, actually, but yeah, I mean, again, I think the Professor Hines in this is there. It's a little bit desaturated around the outside, where before I maybe would have punched the color up in this. Well, I think it's better with a little bit of desaturation, which really brings out the yellows and greens here and forces your kind of attention to be at this bridge, which kind of sticks out because you got a lot of whites along a dark background, and then it kind of takes your view to what you would be seeing while sitting on the bench, which is definitely a part of the pre-Arcanum me that I just think has gotten stronger.
Awesome. Cool.
And more benches. Not much to say here other than, leaves and benches. Could it be any more of a Dan picture? I don't think so. With the only exception that you can't see what you would be seeing from the bench. But hey, not every bench can be the same.
Hmm.
Now, this is a departure from, well, it's not a complete departure. I've always wanted to be stronger black and white photographer. I've never really been happy with previous black and white work, but the one thing that I've definitely learned, or the one thing that I've been more comfortable while part of the Arcanum, is sharing work and not necessarily being, critical to the point of holding back work. Obviously, if it's blurry, if it's out of focus, if there's too much lens dirt, then yeah, that's different. But this is an image that I really, really liked, but wasn't sure about it. So I posted it anyways, well before I wouldn't. And black and white is definitely a genre I've always wanted to be better at. And also black and white in landscape and cityscape, as opposed to just object black and whites. To me, I like the simplicity about it, but yet you can still see, the strong snow line in the mountains. And, you can see the lighthouse is kind of standing out, and it's giving you this vision of being there. And that's just something that, although technically I don't think I learned anything from the Arcanum from a technical perspective about black and white. It's the idea of sharing and just, putting your work out there, and that's more, I guess, something I've learned from you, is just put your work out there, and there's going to be people who hate it, people who love it, and people who are indifferent. But the bottom line is, you just got to do it.
Yeah, because I know you didn't. I don't know if you really shared any black and whites prior to this.
No, I don't know if I've saved any prior to this. I've always tried it and been not sure, and then not gone further on it. I might have some kind of buried somewhere in the back, but definitely I haven't shared them.
Mm-hmm. And so this definitely was a difference, and a great thing to see in your last collection, because black and white. I've mentioned this, black and white and sepia can be two of the hardest to really do, because it's like you kind of have to have the perfect situation for those particular colors. It's like, sometimes, a color version may not be the best for everything. And it's like it'd be that rare instance where a black and white just looks amazing. And most people, if they looked at the scene, I'm sure if it was in, seeing it naturally, they probably wouldn't think, oh, black and white would look good for this. But here it just worked, because it, with the lighthouse there, it just, that's a particular subject that looks great in black and white, regardless of what lighthouse it is. Those generally always look good in a black and white. So it's like you just have to have the right subject for it. And it can be difficult for some, but once you get more into photographing black and whites, you kind of know, oh yeah, I want this in black and white later.
All right, going. Well, that's the image we talked about starting off, so I won't go more about that. Now this is a complete, I would say, post Arcanum work that I think, come on, Lightroom. I think it's got a little bit of Professor Hines in it. It's got kind of my new genre, all in it. I've got other shots from Vancouver that were in my other posts, so yeah, it's stuff that I have worked on throughout the 6 months. But streetscape and urban and architecture photos are something that I'm really happy with, or at least I'm happy with the end progress. And this one I think leaned more towards the type of imagery that you've shown edited in our previous hangouts, which is I can't remember exactly what I did on this image, but it's a bit of desaturation while just emphasizing a couple colors and yeah, I mean, this is definitely something I wouldn't have done 6 months ago. I wouldn't have edited in the same way 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's definitely, I love street photos that have that, that have symmetrics to it, and that's definitely a favorite of mine. I was like, it's such a New York style photo because I actually have a photo that's like this. I actually have a couple actually. And so when I saw this, I was like, yeah, this is a favorite. I automatically know it. I love it. It's definitely it's amazing to kind of see how your variety just continues to grow and grow. And it's almost like I don't know what to expect with your work. And it's like you're fortunate to have such a great place where you live and travel to. I'm like, I don't get those type of places when I'm in Atlanta, unfortunately.
Well, luckily
But
there's a Flatiron building in Toronto, Vancouver, and New York. New York one's much larger than the ones here, but I
oh
don't know.
yeah.
Flatiron buildings just photograph well. Don't know what it is about them, but and I think we discussed. I don't know if we discussed it on a Hangout or if it was just our post Hangout banter. But I've always said post rain photography to me is for nighttime photography after the rain is kind of one of my favorites, just because you get the reflections in the street. And I mean, this is just a cobble street, which is even nicer when it's wet. But it's one of those things that I can't remember. I think it was long, long ago when maybe I hadn't even done my first live hangout that we were chatting after one of the group hangouts, and I can't remember what, I think Shannon was there or something, and we were just discussing that the difference between just your point and shoot weekend weekend Instagrammer and people with our passion is most people see rain and find something else to do. Well, I see rain and I make sure my battery's charged and I've got a SD card that's empty, because that's you get a little wet, get a little cold, but this is the result. So
Yeah, and that's something important to mention because most people think when it rains you can't shoot anything. It's like, oh, I gotta wait till this. No, that's when you want to go outside. It's like get a plastic bag, get a trash bag, get something if your camera isn't weather sealed. Go out there and shoot. Even during it and especially after, you get awesome reflections. You get, I don't know, it's just something, you get richer colors. I feel when even when there's no sun, it's just gloomy, cloudy. You can get some of the richest colors out of that. It's like you'll look at it and it's flat, but I don't know, for some reason in photos you can get the most beautiful colors out of what after it rains. And I'm like, that's the best time to go out. That's how come I usually don't shoot unless it's cloudy out now or if it's rained. And it's like, I hate when there's long periods and it doesn't rain. I'm like, wow, when I'm actually looking for the rain now, it's not raining.
well, I think that to me, before the Arcanum, I was a sunrise and a sunset photographer, so I had 30 minutes, or no, maybe an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, and that was it. Now I do sunrise, sunset, love nighttime photography. Never done it before, but just absolutely love nighttime photography. And then to me, an overcast day, which incredibly overcast, and nighttime with overcast. I mean, post rains, so it's a big jump in I guess my interests, I would say.
Yeah, I just posted today on Instagram about most people knew that I wasn't a person who loved nighttime photography. I hated my nighttime stuff. And I'm like, oh, nighttime, really? But it's like for nighttime, you really have to have a interesting location. That's what really is the biggest thing with that. You got to have something with a lot of light, a lot of action to, I guess, really appreciate it and enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, nighttime photography it's fun because you said this to me and I didn't really take it to heart at first, but for some reason, nighttime photography on Instagram just blows up. Like, but make sure you've got enough batteries in your phone, because you're going to be checking your likes page for the next 24 hours after you post a nighttime photography. I don't know what it is. I think it's because there's so much daytime, and like anyone can go out and shoot on their phone, hanging out on a patio, right? Like, that's not complicated. But when you need to, make sure that you've got your long exposures, and you got to set up properly, and I think your editing skills have to be a little bit more on point to really not go too far, but capture detail and punch out the colors. I think it's definitely, if you can master, I think it's an important part of if you want to sell prints, it's a pretty important part.
Oh yeah.
So the next image on the screen, I don't know if this is pre-Arcanum, post-Arcanum. I think this comes back to the Karen Hutton video where this river in the background I was trying to get a photo of, and it was overcast. It just wasn't, I think I have a couple, but it wasn't great. And then I was walking past and I saw these mushrooms growing on this tree, and I tried to make this as sharp as possible. And I mean, just when I saw these with all the veins in the mushroom, and it was catching this light, I mean, it was so cool that I wasn't sure if I could do justice to it in post-processing, but I thought, what, snap off a couple exposures and see what you can do. And I mean, this is the end result. So I guess it's a little bit of post, a little bit of pre, and a little bit of everything that I've learned.
Cool.
So this is kind of similar to an image I'd posted before, and again, nighttime, reflections, colors. It's a little bit of everything, a little bit of the stuff I liked before, and just some of the stuff I've learned moving forward.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorites in your series from this collection.
Yeah, no, this is an image I'd captured this from somewhere like over here, I think, before, looking this way at the dome. But this is just another one, still from Vancouver, the Science Center there. And it's a little bit different than the last one I processed of the same location. It's definitely a different view of it, but just a slightly different processing. But I love this image, so thought I would include it.
Awesome. I definitely love that one. The one that you took, I think it was in your last post where it was dead on and you had the reflection with the boats and everything. Yeah. That one was a great one. So this is another good one, because I love that you got this bridge in the shot. So if that wasn't there, I'm not sure if it would. I would have loved it, but I don't know if I would have loved it as much as the other image. But for some reason, it's things like that, where you're including objects in the foreground, and then you have this beautiful background that just, it's like you fill up the frame. You fill it up with all of this stuff. You don't really have any empty space, which works very great.
Yeah, I think for the image you're talking about, the middle ground and background are kind of the same, maybe a different perspective of them, but there's obviously, they look the same, but just by changing the foreground and the orientation, you completely change the image. And yeah, I mean, my editing style is still very similar, but it's a completely different image. And if you're going to do a series, it works because they're different, but they tell a story of a location. So
awesome.
This is
my favorite.
I know this is one you like. This is in Vancouver as well. It's not terribly close to the last image, but it's kind of along the same area. And this screams the stuff I've learned from you, in terms of, or just the style I've learned from you, I guess. Just in looking at your images and following you on Instagram and the hangouts we've done, where you've edited live. I mean, this is kind of maybe an ode to Professor Hines, if I could call it that. But it's got the desaturated look. It's got the blocks are strong. There's contrast, especially in the foreground. I put in a lot of contrast. I don't like contrast in clouds or sky, so I think I did selective contrast here. Nighttime, which is definitely something I've learned. So this is, if I had to sum this off, this is the ode to Professor Hines.
Yeah, this this is a favorite. I love this shot. I mean, there's nothing extra to say to this. I just love this photo.
Okay, I guess there's a lot of Vancouver in a row on this. I guess that's just how it put it all together. So this is, now I'm going back to what I used to know and love, or what I started off knowing and loving, which was sunsets and sunrises. And I think old me would have kind of come up right to the end of this boardwalk here and tried to get nothing but mountains and lake or ocean, I guess, in background. But in this image, I wanted to really get that boardwalk where it looks like you're walking. It almost looks like you're walking off into the sunset.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, this is again what I came into the Arcanum knowing and loving, but with I think a little bit more finesse and a little bit more tools and knowledge.
Have you noticed, like from when you started to now, have you kind of seen the difference of where it's like, you know, I think most people, I was the same way when I started as a photographer 7 years ago. And, I was taught, to zoom in as close as you can with whatever lens you have. You want to get as tight as you can. And it's like, I thought that was great. But then it's like after a while, I'm like, gosh, it's like you'll look at photos and you're wondering, well, what else was going on in that? Or I want to see a little bit more. So it's like I after a while I just gravitated to where it's like now naturally I shoot as wide as I can get. And it's like, have you noticed the difference of like before where some of your images you had landscape shots like how you were saying you get either just a mountain with the lake. Some of your first images were that. Have you kind of seen the difference of those images to now where you're filling in the frame, and it's like now I think you've actually been shooting with your 10 to 24 lens more often than you have your zoom lens.
Oh yeah, I every time I go anywhere, the 10 to 20 is on the like that's what it's set up with, and I still use other lenses. I still want to get other lenses as well. But the one thing you mentioned this moments ago is that I find now that I'm actually, I don't know how to explain it, but like before I would go out to a location that I'd either known, seen, heard of, whatever, and just fired away, seeing what I could get. Now, when I look through the viewfinder, for us archaic people with DSLRs, and I'm looking what the mirror is showing me, I'm actually composing in the viewfinder, which is not something I necessarily did before, which I think is very important because, I do a lot of Photoshop and Lightroom and plugins, and I'm very big on editing, but there's only so much you can do in those medium. As far as I'm concerned, like I don't like to add pixels. I like to just modify pixels. But, before I would just snap away and see what came out of it. Now I'm actually looking through the viewfinder and saying, okay, what's here that shouldn't be here? Am I too zoomed in or too zoomed out? Sometimes it is the case, you're too zoomed out. So, that's definitely in this image. I could tell I wanted that lamp. I wanted the boardwalk and the dock. Like these are all things that I was looking for in the viewfinder. So, I mean, other than that, I think before I would have tried to oversaturate this, like, these greens here in the bushes, I would have tried to make those pop. Well, now, I pick and choose. And sometimes, as you've seen before, I still love very colorful photos. It's not that I don't do any of them. But in this image, I think it was a stronger message to desaturate the greens and this area to really pull you in and make it seem like you're about to walk down this boardwalk.
You really, gained in your ability as far as analyzing a scene and picturing. You've now graduated from being, just a photographer, where you're just taking your camera, taking a shot, to actually becoming an artist where you actually paint in your mind what that image has to look like. And it's like it just makes things easier. And sometimes it actually makes the editing process easier. You know, starting out, it's like you want to do all this stuff to the photo, but then later on you realize, well, I don't have to do all of this. You know, if I just plan accordingly, you know, really focus on what I'm shooting at that point, the scene that you've captured is already doing the work for you. You have a lot to work with. And this is one of those examples. You have so much here. You filled the frame, you got the sky, you got the buildings over to the right, which is incredible to have in this. And then one thing I love, I don't think we ever mentioned this, the window with the reflection.
I love
I
that.
think that's
That's
hot.
something as well. Yeah,
Like
like that reflection. I was so glad. I wasn't sure when I was shooting this if it was going to come out, and to be honest, the raw files weren't fantastic, so I did have to play with it. But
mhm.
I love that. Like that is something, that's the attention to detail I don't think I had before, which is something that you specifically talked about lots, and you and I have spoken about, and we've just discussed it generally, is that attention to detail, which is, you know, what's that, maybe 10% of, maybe 5% of the overall frame, I think just gives it that pop or that wow factor.
Because
Or even
if you
this
blew
here.
that shot up and printed that, you know, someone would ask, is this a picture or is this a painting? Because, you know, it's so detailed. You know, most people don't really carefully take the time to think of a shot. Like, I mean, there's so much that you can do here. It's like I can look so many different ways. It's like I feel like I'm standing there taking that shot myself because I just feel like I can walk this boardwalk. I can go and see the lake. I can go down on this ramp and see the lake. I can watch the sunset. You know, you make the viewer a part of the photo, including this one lamp here. You know, some will either try to Photoshop it out, maybe crop in to where, you know, they exclude that. Why? That makes the photo. I even love, you even caught the whole tree. You caught all the trees in the shot. You know, there's no way, there's nothing else to say. You just captured this perfectly. And I love that when it comes to lines, that's something that you've always been very strong on with your lines. How you get your images perfectly straight and your final results are just always perfect. That's something that you, even though you may not have seen it beforehand, that was always, I think I mentioned that to you, as far as you are always good with your lines. That's something I sucked at. For some reason, my images are always tilted to one side. I don't know why, but it's like I more and more I started paying attention to that more. But your images are always, I don't know what you do. I don't think we've ever done a session. Maybe we'll do that one day where I actually see a session of you editing one of your photos. But you know, you get them perfectly straight, even when you're on street level. That's something that actually blew my mind in one of the earlier critiques. You shot on the ground, but yet the photo was still straight. I'm like, how the heck did he do that? Do that?
Yeah, I think that was the light streaks one, and that was something you said to me. I think it was maybe, I don't know if that was level 5 or level 10, but it was the first 10 levels for sure. And that was something you said to me, and it was funny because to me that was not anything noteworthy. And this, I've always just, I've wanted pictures to look like, I want leading lines, I want, like, vertical lines should be vertical lines, and some people don't like that, and that's a style thing. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's just always something I've personally done. And when you said that to me, then I was like, huh, I didn't even know that that was something other people noticed, or not. But like, to me, it's, I think it feels more realistic that way, or at least it makes you feel like you're there more if your eye is seeing it the way your eye would see it when you're there.
It did make me, because if you look at, you know, before I even was a master in the Arcanum, if you look at my New York series versus Chicago, you notice very drastically different styles in those two. And they're only just a few, you know, maybe 9 months apart from one another when I took those images. And it's because, you know, just from seeing your photos and how, because my New York series images that I had of buildings, they're not straight. None of those are straight unless I was actually elevated. Chicago, on the other hand, I focus specifically on that, where if I'm taking them on street level, I still made sure this has to be straight.
Right.
I paid more attention to that, whereas before I wasn't doing that as much. But just looking at your work and seeing how you did that, I need to, look at this, doing this more in my photos, because I just never really thought about doing that much, or focused on that as far as when I was taking my pictures or editing them. But with my Chicago series, you see that I focus a lot on the lines, because it's like it had to be straight. It had to be perfectly straight.
And that, yeah, it was just funny that you'd mentioned, because to me that was just something I've always done. I've always spent a lot of time making sure things were straight, and sometimes it is an incredibly like long procedure. Sometimes it's quick. You hit auto on Lightroom and you're done. But oftentimes you just got to do it manually for it to look right. But those are just kind of some of the things I brought in with me that I've only just made stronger.
This shot is amazing.
So this is, yeah, I think this is a little bit of what I was doing before. Maybe the editing or the scene is better, because I definitely didn't go it's still HDR. It's still, I think, 2 or 3 exposures, but it's not like HDR I was doing before, where I wanted a dark foreground and these buildings, they're still visible. They're still, I could punch up the shadows and you could see that in more detail. And when you look closely, you can see it's all there, but I wanted this to be more silhouetted.
Mm-hmm.
But I still got my favorite part, which is sunrises, and you got a little mountain in the background. So it's not a complete departure, but it's
perfectly captured the
yeah.
helicopter in the shot too. That was a nice capture.
Yeah, I think I was doing burst mode, and I think I did 10 bursts, and like 2 of them came out crisp and sharp like that. And this one, I mean, it was just so happened that the helicopter was just perfectly framed with these 2 these cranes on either side, and it was like, it almost looks like the helicopter's about to fly through them
It does.
as like a goalpost or something in the sky. So it's a little bit of everything in there.
Awesome.
And back to bench photography. I'm going to make a new genre of bench photography. It'll be landscape, then bench photography will be something I start. But,
hey, that's not a bad thing.
I don't know why. There's something about these images I just love, which is, you can, for me, because obviously I was there, but I can picture what it looked like to sit on that bench over this. There's just like a drop off on the mountainside where you've got these massive trees and the sun breaking through the leaves. And, I think it's less colorful than I would have done 6 months ago, because I just think it's more powerful. With the greens muted a little bit, I popped the oranges a little bit here, just to get, a little bit stronger on the left-hand side than the right to lead you in. But other than that, I mean, it's simple, but also I think shows a lot what I've learned from you.
Awesome.
Night photography, something I'm definitely new at, but yeah, this was completely new to me 6 months ago, and capturing night photography to this level, complete urban streetscape, not a mountain or sun in the area, or a bench for that matter. So this definitely screams what I've learned.
Yeah, I definitely love that one.
Something about this one I had to add. To me, the image, I like it because it's clean and simple, and I think a lot of the work I'd done before, the images weren't simple. They were, lots of colors and landscapes, which can often have like high frequency textures and stuff like that. This is very much this is more the story it tells, where, this cable car is going up into the mist, into the unknown.
You know, you should post that photo and tag Visa in the photo. I guarantee you they might want to feature that.
Yeah, I assure you, I'm not a paid Visa photographer. I'd be happy to. They can contact me anytime and give me some money. I mean, I use enough of my Visa that they can pay some of it off for me. But yeah, I don't know. Something I don't think I would have captured a clean, simple shot like this before. It was all about this is not the shot that I came to capture, and it was behind me and overcast. Just everything I wouldn't have done before is in this shot. So I think it was worth posting.
Awesome.
I just like this dog. There's no other reason to post this other than I think this dog was awesome. I've got a whole series of this dog playing in the ocean here. It's still an HDR. I had to HDR the background and then take one image of the dog that was clean. And again, it's more on the desaturated side. It's not black and white by any means. I've definitely punched up the golds and the oranges and the yellows here, but on the greens and the blues, I went down in saturation, which is, as you know, or it was new for me 6 months ago. So there's a little bit of everything. This dog looks fantastic to me. I want to go play in the ocean with him. Now, this is one of my favorite images, and it was close to being one of the two, this and the other one of this balcony.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about this other than, it's got my favorite thing, which is a sunset. It's got some oceans and background scenery, but just the way that all the building lines lead to the sunset, same way that the balcony leads to the sunset. I love this image.
Yeah, that's a great photo.
This one we spoke about is the same balcony, just later on, different day, I think, as well. This is one that actually is done. This is the last image. I think I posted it Thursday on social media, and it's done very well. So I'm happy, for that, because posting on social media is something you've brought out in me. But I guess it's got the leading lines, and it's overcast, and there's a lot in here I wouldn't have necessarily thought of capturing before, but I just, I like the way it turned out. I like that I got low enough so that this post here is actually popping up above the horizon, which kind of gives you this idea of grandeur or scale, which I like. While before I would have just, taken my tripod, extended the legs as much as possible, taken a shot and walked away. But in this one, I was looking through the lens, and when I was standing tall, it didn't seem like powerful. It just seemed like, any other shot.
Mm-hmm.
But then, when I collapsed the tripod down to, the shortest and looked through, I was like, oh, wow, like now it sticks out because this is above the horizon, and it really makes it pop.
Yeah, it's amazing how just a different perspective of angle can really, almost make or break the photo. And I love this one because I like how you have this row here and kind of in the off center to the left. And it's like you just want to lead up that trail. And then I love how you included the trail over on the far right. You got the hill on the top. It's just, you fill the frame with so much good stuff. And that's been one of the best things that I've loved about your work, is that you really love including and making the viewer a part of every image.
Yeah, to me, this is one where I could just step into this picture and, like you said, want to walk down. I don't think the vineyard would be happy if I started walking down and picking the vines for them. But anyways, that's what I wanted to do. It's a bench, but not like the other benches where it's just, I don't know, I saw this bouquet someone had obviously strung onto this bench, and I just think it was a nice, with the waves out of focus and the mountain in the background out of focus. It just, I don't think I would have captured this before. It's definitely muted, but I still think powerful, which is not something I would have sought out to capture, but definitely part of my repertoire now.
Cool.
This is actually from that same balcony a little bit earlier in the day, from like 2 or 3 images ago. I don't know, not much to say on this one. I think it's something I probably would have captured, before the Arcanum. Like I said, I would have gone to the edge of the balcony and gone for the sunset, and that would have been the focus, which is what this is. Basically, tripod legs weaved in between the balcony for stability, and then just, nothing in the nothing close to me in the foreground, just getting the sunset, and I still like it. I still definitely will do that type of photography. So
Awesome.
oh, and that's, I think, it.
Oh,
Yeah.
great work as always. I definitely love that. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, well, I got nothing else. I mean, that was a great gallery, and I think that, for you're gonna do well at this, and I've loved that you've been really getting into the sharing mode for your posts, and getting more exposure on social media. Um, if you guys want to see more of Dan's work, I'm actually going to have a section on my website, which is going to be in my classes Arcanum section, where Dan doesn't know this, but he's going to help me out with kind of, a little bit of what was in this video, which I think I might make public. This particular video, the last one, kind of showing your work, and I think it will, be something that'll benefit not just people in the Arcanum, but people who are starting out as photographers as well. And let's see, I think that's it. Let's see, I want to actually share my screen really quickly. Let's see here. I do entire screen. There we go. So I wanted to go to this. So what you guys saw, that was the last album of Dan's. This is his very first one. And so I just want to show this, so that way all of this will be in the same video. Reason why I'm doing it this way. So this was Dan's very first album when he joined the Arcanum, his introduction into the Arcanum. And you kind of you see a very difference in his work. He's still doing a lot of what he was doing when he entered, but he's refined a lot of his work. He's refined everything. And I'll never forget, I think this photo is always the one picture I always go back to whenever I think of when you first started. Because I remember mentioning that, this was a very tight shot. What about, stepping back? Because I feel like it's very cramped in. I really can't see anything. The rocks were blocking. You kind of see like the where the water is peeking behind the rock there.
Mm-hmm.
So like you couldn't see that. I'm like, I want a little bit more. It's like I want a little bit more feeling in this. And so it's amazing to see how everything, you're still doing what you love, incorporating new things that you had never tried before, but you've brought in so much. It's like now you're putting yourself in the shoes of your viewers versus just as a photographer. You know, we see things a lot differently than normal people, because artists, just think and see things differently. And so it's like you're trying to capture the moment that you're in at that time, as far as what your experience is personally. We're not there to see and witness all of that, so it's like, how do you portray all of that in a photo? And you really just grown so much in that. Like, looking back at this, what do you think of seeing your work from November 6 months ago to now? Like, what are your thoughts on this?
It's interesting. I actually looked at, because I mean, I have all these images. I've posted a lot of them to social media. I think we discussed this before. I don't throw away anything. I think it's important to remember where you came from, because you learn from it better. But I was looking at some of those images a couple weeks back, just going through stuff that needed edits or touch-ups before it got posted. And like some of those shots, like this one, for example, and I think we discussed it in one of my critiques and about attention to detail. And that's, something where I wish I could go back and recapture this, because I look at it now and I'm not really happy with the raw file out of the camera. But, it's one of those things that I think my passion for photography has only, increased. And what I've like this kind of shot, which I know was one of your faves from the beginning and did really well.
Oh, it's still a favorite.
Thank you. And did really well on social media. It's like, this is what I wanted all my images to look like. I just didn't know that. And now I actually have the tools and the confidence and the wherewithal to know what I want my photography to look like. And not necessarily that it's got to be a sunset or sunrise, with an ocean and rocks, but it's the cleanliness with the right amount of color and that attention, like the attention to detail, like just those rocks being sharp. And had I just gone crazy on HDR, I would have lost a lot of that sharpness. And that's kind of what I wanted all my images back then to be. I just didn't know how to achieve it. And now I've kind of sorry about that. Now I think I've become better at focusing on that, like focusing on the end image from even before I hit the shutter release.
Yeah, I mean, these, like this image was one that if you all remember back a long time ago, and this is still one of my favorites to this day of Dan's. And this is kind of like the image that I saw him share, where I kind of saw, okay, this is the direction I think I kind of want to push him towards, because if he can do this, I know he's got the skill. This usually when people do HDR for the first time, starting out, they make it look very grungy like. Your HDRs were never that. And then when I saw this photo, I was like, he knows how to capture a scene like this very well. So it's like, okay, how do we take this and then just expand on this? Because it's like you had the vision, you had the eye for seeing something amazing and capturing it. But then it was like, how do you actually take that, create a story from it? How do you actually go about refining on something like this? And so I think a lot of the challenges really helped you out a lot, especially, I think the mobile one was probably one that you said was the most difficult. But it got you in a different realm that you weren't comfortable in. And that's one thing that I liked for my students. I always like making them uncomfortable because I feel like it just opens them up more to, trying different things. That's all I really want everyone to see, is that I just want everyone to experience something different, something new. That to come sometimes in our hangout sessions. I even did, where I would share things as far as fashion, portraits. I know many different areas. Even though my group is specifically, more landscape HDR oriented, and I've actually changed my classification to digital image making because it's such a wide variety. And my thing is, I want to share as much as I can, so that way it just opens you up more creatively. Because if I just showed you landscapes, you probably wouldn't have learned as quickly as you did. I'm like, you already know landscapes. That why teach you something that you have an idea of already? I'm like, that's not how I see anyone is going to learn. Where you learn is if you experience something that makes you uncomfortable, but take what you enjoy and apply that. It's the same thing. And you saw that firsthand going all the way through. I'm like, you went through night photography, you went through urban, you went through architecture, all these different things that you weren't doing every single day, but you apply what you love, what you know, onto that. to where I would click on the wrong thing, but let's see. Where you go through all of that, and then you end up with no results. Oh, how funny this is. Okay, where you end up with photos like this. I'm like, still the same, nothing's changed. The only thing that ever changed that I ever shared, that was ever taught, is just sharing what you weren't doing. That's how you learned. That's how you began becoming more creative. That's how you because the greatest thing about being an artist in anything that you do is putting more of you into your photos. Don't worry about what other people say. People will gravitate to your work if they see that you're putting yourself into it. And that's the biggest thing that I could possibly ever share with anybody. It's like, if you don't love what you're producing, no one else will. It's like, people are gonna, there may be that one person that says, oh, this is terrible, but there are 100 others that love it. Because there are a lot of times where I share things I personally, may not have liked it, but everyone else will. And like, I've only been doing street photography a year, but it's helped me so much in my style, to where, I have a different style now, trying so many different things. But it's like, everything that I learned before that, I'm still doing it. I'm just applying it to street, and then learning different things with street photography. That's how you continue to grow. And that's where your work has transformed in. Because look at this gallery. Everything is consistent, but you have many different subjects. Because you actually have a style. You have your own unique style now, to where I can look at a photo and say, yeah, Dan took that. Yeah, that's Dan.
And I think the other thing that, I mean, as maybe a takeaway from, the last 6 months of my time with the Arcanum, is the learning the other genres, including night and more so, I would say, the street photography, is that I think it actually made my landscape photography better. Is learning to think along the lines of another genre made my street or my landscape photography better, because it made me be aware of other things other than just throwing as much color on an image as possible and seeing what I could do in HDR. Like everything else that I learned, which was more maybe detail oriented, or learning to play with or use saturation to my advantage, I think still comes back to landscape, and which is what I originally signed up for. And there's still a lot of genres I haven't done, like that you do. I mean, like, model photography and that kind of stuff, or event photography, which maybe I will, maybe I won't, who knows. But, all these things, help you with other genres. And that's something, I came in saying, I'm a landscape photographer. I want to take pictures of nature. And then that didn't really stick, or it stuck. It expanded as well, I guess.
Yeah, because it's that's the primary thing. Coming in, I already know what you guys want to learn, but it's my goal of, okay, how do we take that? Coming in as a person that's new, wants to grow their art. Okay, how do we actually help in this area and improve their work, while also still sliding in stuff they never even was interested in, and not even knowing it. Because now that you're at the end of it and looking back, you see that I threw in stuff that you were not interested in, but you didn't know that, because I gradually brought it onto you. That's how I try it. I know what you want, landscape. So what did I do at first? Shared nothing but landscape. Then all of a sudden, I did a hangout session. I'm not sure if it was your first one or not, but remember, I had one on Grand Central Station. That
Yeah.
was architecture. A little different. No one caught on to that. Then I had another one that was on fashion. No one caught on to that. Then I went back to landscape. The next few were landscape. Then again, I switched back. You all never picked up on that, because I wanted you all to see the variety and then apply those different things to what you love. Now you see why I did that. Because again, like you just said, doing those different areas helped the primary one that you want to do, landscape. And that's something that I learned as you know, starting out as a landscape HDR photographer. Going into other areas helped me when I come back and actually do landscape, to where, you know, sometimes landscape can get a little boring because it's like, how many mountains, how many waterfalls can I possibly photograph and make them look different? That's where doing those other techniques, other genres, because the situations are always changing and the environments are changing, to where your editing is always changing. Nothing is ever consistent with that. And so having that knowledge and that know-how, once you go to landscape, you can do anything. You can photograph the same waterfall 10 times and each image will look different, because you have that ability to where you've experienced these other areas that are always ever changing so much that now you can apply that to landscape.
Yeah, and you know, that's maybe not a technical benefit, but definitely you know, as a photographer, yeah, it's opened my eyes to other types of photography that I now love. Like I search out you know, street shots and night, especially nighttime. Like night photography is something I never was good at or really worked on, which is maybe probably why I wasn't good at it. But you know, that's something I definitely do now, and I love it. It's something that to me is just another way of telling the story, right? And that's kind of what it's all about.
And you kind of see like how I threw in stuff with weddings sometimes, you know, it's many different things, you know. I wanted you all to have as many different options as possible, because, you know, you never know. I mean, as you get older, you know, things change, your mindset changes, you know, your creativity changes. So it's like you want to have all these options that you can just choose from at any time and, you know, go forth in that. And so I think you've done a great job in that. And so, you know, I know this video has been long, and so we'll probably cut it here, but it won't be the last one, because I think instead of putting everything in one long video, I'll just, you know, cut this one here, let you guys, you know, marinate on this one. Um, and hopefully, you know, you guys will check out more of Dan's work. I have his link on my website, professorhines.com/arcanum, or you can go straight to his Instagram page, which is Dan_Joffe. Because if I say it, people probably don't know how to spell it.
Yeah, that's
So,
probably best.
you know, find him on Instagram. I will be featuring more of his work on my page as well. And yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully it was something that was encouraging for some of you all who are new into photography, to kind of see, you know, this is what you can do in 6 months. You know, he took the initiative of taking advantage of every single thing possible. And, you know, Dan is my favorite student I've had. He's the first student who's gone all the way through, no breaks at all. And, you know, he just worked very hard at it. And he's done a lot of things that I really want you guys to see, especially with the images that he shared with me, as far as with creating his portfolio. So that's I want to do another video, and so that way he has a chance to kind of show you some of that, and you know, do different things as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Look for more videos to come, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Any final words, Dan?
No, just thanks for the last 6 months. It's definitely been a great experience. I think you and I have discussed many times about the experience and things I like, things I don't like. But overall, I mean, just in this last hour, I guess we've been chatting. It's, you know, to see the before and after is amazing. So thank you.
No problem. I've enjoyed you. And as they say on the New York City subway trains, Stand clear of the closing doors, please.